Hello, everyone. My name is Professor Ship. I also go by the name of Professor TK the Chemist. Many of you all know me as Professor TK the Chemist because I am a STEM outreach consultant where I go out into the community to provide STEM activities for kids of all ages. But by day, I am Professor Ship because I am a biology and chemistry professor. This is a special edition of the More Than Just Science Show, and I would like to talk to you all today about the Los Angeles teachers' strike, which has cost them $97 million. Let's go ahead and get down to what's happening in Los Angeles. Earlier this week, we saw where teachers were protesting a number of things. So many people were talking about the teachers are spoiled, they're greedy, they are not really there for the children. I mean, there were all kinds of negative connotations on social media. But I want to go ahead and dispel some of the myths that you all may have heard, and let's go ahead and get down to the real deal of what's happening. First off, more than 30 educators walked off the job. And you're probably saying, why? Well, I will tell you why. As a matter of fact, we've had walk offs here in my state of North Carolina. And last year, there were several other states that had the same thing happen because the bottom line is teachers want, of course, more pay, but the real issue, aside from that, is the lack of accountability. The lack of accountability. We have so many schools that are lacking teachers, qualified teachers, nurses, social workers, counselors. These are people who are instrumental in running the school system. And because California is having all of these issues, which you know, California is the largest state in the United States. If it's happening to them, imagine what's happening in the smaller towns across the country. Now, this is an issue because many of you all may not be aware of the fact that the attendance that goes on in the schools every day, schools get funding for that. So, approximately 84,000 kids of the 600,000 that went to school were present. In other words, 84,000 of the 600,000 kids were in school, and that's a 37% drop in the attendance according to this particular article. Now, the problem is that they're taking a dip, and every day that the kids are out of school, they're losing more money. And so here's the other issue. It's not that they want more money, it's also the fact that they want better funding for these kids. Okay? What people don't realize is that there are children who go to school in dilapidated environments. The ceilings are caving in. There's water dripping in the hallways. There are rats running through the schools. There's mold growing in the schools. Shall I continue? So, as we see some of the issues that these teachers are talking about, let's take a look at what is happening. They're wanting the teachers to go to school and have 45 kids in their classrooms. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been teaching for 22 years. January 15th makes my 22nd years of teaching. And as I think about the times that I've taught in the different schools that I've taught, it reminds me of how if you don't know what's going on behind closed doors, you will never understand the complaints you hear. So here's one of the things that they want. They want, of course, to have a reduction in classroom sizes, more nurses, counselors, and librarians. They want to cap the size of your middle and high school English and math classes to 39. I could not imagine in a chemistry class having that many students. If you think about the amount of children you have safely running a biology or chemistry lab, that's room for disaster, not only to the kids in the classroom, but to the whole school. They also want to provide nursing staff at these elementary schools every day, 5 days a week. Do you all know that there are some schools where there's not a nurse on staff at all? And if there is, they're only there 1 day a week because that nurse has to go to each school on a part-time basis. See, some people don't know about that. And the other issue is they want at least a 6% salary increase and back pay for the school year from 2017 to 2018. And see, people are not aware of all these issues. They're just thinking that teachers, you get paid, you have your summers off. No, pump your brakes. We don't have our summers off totally when we have to do professional development. Or you have to look for another job to supplement your income. Speaking of income, let's take a look at the numbers because I'm a numbers person. I love to show the numbers because so many people don't realize what's at stake here. Now, I'm just going to look at the teacher who makes $50,000. Okay, because you know, starting teachers in some of these states and cities, they're only bringing home like $30,000 as a start first year teacher. But let's say that you have a teacher who's been teaching for 10 years and they're earning $50,000. Pump your brakes, boom, boom, because take out taxes, and what do they bring home? Deduct $15,000, they're bringing home $35,000 over either 12 months or 9 months. And for teachers that want their pay over 12 months, guess what? They're only bringing home less than $3,000. Because you do know you got to pay Uncle Sam. You got to pay your local and state taxes, okay? Federal taxes, okay? So that $50,000 that you saw highlighted in green is now $35,000. And if you don't realize that that $50,000 is now $35,000 after taxes are deducted, you've got to take out for health insurance, their rent or their mortgage, their 401k, the retirement plan, groceries. If they have a car, there's car insurance or a car payment, or if they're getting, let's say, a bus transfer back and forth to school, for whatever the case may be in terms of transportation purposes, okay? Then you also have your electricity, your gas and your water, and your student loan payments. If you factor all of this in, I didn't even talk about cable. Okay, some teachers can't afford cable. I didn't even give you Netflix. Okay, and we know Netflix is going up on their bill soon as well. We didn't talk about the teacher who wants to go and maybe get her hair done, or the male teacher that wants to get a haircut. We didn't talk about the teachers who want to have nice clothing to look decent. Yes, they can go to Goodwill. Yes, I get all of that. But ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind that there are some luxury items that teachers do want to take on, like having a gym membership, because mental and physical health is important in order for us to be productive in the classroom. Yeah, I know they don't have to have a gym membership. Okay, so let's take that out. But my point is, if you look at all of those things on the screen, you tell me how much this is going to cost them over a year's time. So that teacher is bringing home 35,000 for the year, approximately 2,900 for the month. Guess what that equals to? $37,800 worth of expenses. They're in the red. They owe. Somebody's not going to get paid. Some bill is going to get neglected. Perhaps they're not going to be able to pay their car payment. Perhaps they're not going to be able to eat their lunch or dinner or breakfast. So that $50,000 that you thought was a lot of money really is not. So let's go back again to what's happening in the classroom. The classroom size is one of the number one things that I think about in terms of not wanting it to be that size. 35 to 40 kids is a lot of children when half of those kids may have an IEP. And if you don't know what an IEP is, let me show you what an IEP is. Or let me give you the example of an IEP. You may have a child who may have to have their test read to them. You may have a child who may have to have their test rewritten a certain way. You may have a child who may have to have their test recorded. Okay? There are auditorial learners, visual learners, kinesthetic learners. So you have children who are learning different types of ways, and parents are understanding that the schools are going to modify their instruction because they have a 504 plan or an IEP. Let me show you the difference. An IEP is defined as a plan or program developed to ensure that a child who has a disability identified under the law and is attending an elementary or secondary educational institution receives specialized instruction and related services. A 504 plan is a plan developed to ensure that a child who has a disability identified under the law and is attending an elementary or secondary educational institution receives accommodations that will ensure their academic success and access to the learning environment. Okay? Students with 504 plans do not require specialized instruction, but like the IEP, a 504 plan should be updated annually to ensure that the student is receiving the most effective accommodations for his or her circumstances. Okay, so there are a lot of different factors that go into that. A lot of different factors. Let's take a look at some examples of the potential problems that could happen if the schools aren't implementing the student's IEP. So the first bullet point, if students' IEPs aren't being implemented or even read in providing accommodations and placement for students in the classroom, on the bus, and in social engagements, the risks are huge. For example, physical injury to staff, students, administrators, bus drivers, and volunteers could result if a level 4 EBD, which is emotionally behavioral disturbed student with a disciplinary history of aggressive assaults and threats of violence is placed in mainstream classrooms when the IEP indicates the student's placement is in a self-contained classroom with one-on-one instructional assistance. Guys, I see this all the time whenever I'm out in some of these after school programs because some of them don't have adequate staffing that is accustomed to dealing with kids who have modified instruction. So yes, it even carries over even in the after school setting. But my point to what I'm saying is imagine having at least 10 kids who have these particular set of issues. And as a teacher, you're not able to accommodate them. What could potentially happen? There's a lot. The schools could get in trouble for that. Here are some examples of accommodations that could perhaps be a problem or is problematic in a lot of these schools. For instance, if you have a child who can't sit still to do math, an accommodation may be to have that child have frequent breaks. For a child who struggles to write out answers on tests, an accommodation may be to give her answers, orally. The accommodation matches the need. So here are 4 different categories. You have presentation. This is when a change in the way information is being presented, like letting a child with dyslexia listen to audiobooks instead of reading printed text. The response, a change in the way the child completes an assignment, like you may allow a child to maybe type out their essay rather than handwriting their essay. You may have to bring the child out to do their test where they have to be in a separate room. So there are a lot of different modifications that are made. And again, when you go back to the LA strike, if I can take you back there for a moment, you will see that that is a problem when you have classroom sizes that are very large. Okay? So what I would like to show you at this particular moment is a perspective from one of the teachers who this is affecting so you can understand why this strike is important. Again, California is getting a lot of play in the media right now, but this happened in Oklahoma, Virginia, and North Carolina last year. Take a look.
Much for being here. Talk to me about what the major issue is and where you are compared with where the district is, and whether or not there's going to be some deal coming soon to get everyone back into the classroom.
Well, thanks for having me, Katie. As for whether there's a deal, when I heard you say there might be one, I'm not sure right now. As far as I know, we're waiting for the district to make a move in our direction. What we're looking for is a commitment to funding public education properly in Los Angeles. And right now, that's not where the district's at.
Well, what do you need from the district? You say they have $1.8 billion in reserves. They're saying that they can't just hand it over because they have all sorts of, all of that money has been earmarked for the future, a lot of it going to teacher payouts, et cetera, and pensions. Who needs to come in here and help get you guys back in?
I think we do need some help from the mayor and the governor, and that's starting to happen. The mayor was at our rallies yesterday. He was walking around talking to teachers. He talked to one of the colleagues at my school. He was apparently marching with us today. We have city councilmen out, so that's starting to happen. And I'm glad you mentioned the $1.8 billion they have in reserve. They do have it. I think all of us agree that's not going to be the long-term solution. But when they have that kind of money, that's enough for them to take a step in the right direction. And California certainly has a massive budget surplus right now, and there's will for the voters to fund education.
So why is there such a shortage in funding for California schools, for the LAUSD? I mean, I was in LAUSD until 6th grade. And class size was a problem back then. I had more than 30 kids in my classroom in 6th grade. There are more than 40 kids in some classes now, upwards of 50. Some people don't have desks. I mean, it's a real issue. Why has this been a lingering issue for decades now?
Well, I think if you look at nationwide, it's been a lingering issue nationwide, right? I mean, we know that in California they had Prop 13 in the 70s that caused a lot of problems. But nationwide, we have not prioritized public education. And after the strikes that have happened recently across the country, we feel like maybe we can start pushing that ball in the opposite direction because, like you said, this has been an issue for far too long. And we're the 5th largest economy in the world. We're the richest state in the union. We can do better for our kids.
What is the root of the problem? Is it just attendance? Is there an issue with a lot of the more affluent kids going to charter schools, private schools, and taking the attention away from the public schools in LAUSD?
Well, the state funding has been a problem. We are the bottom 10 in the nation, but we do have a problem in LAUSD that there's been a long privatization movement about a decade old. I mean, if you see school board races here, it looks like a congressional seat is being fought over with the money that's coming in from outside. So there has been a big force to privatize schools in our school board, and that's part of what we're fighting right now.
How hard is it to teach a class with upwards of 40 kids?
I mean, once you know how to manage kids, if they like you, you like them, you're not going to have chaos, but you're not going to give them what you need, what they need. I'm sorry. So, as I mentioned in a piece I wrote, obviously you can't give them a decent response to their essay. To do a 15-minute response for an essay for a class of 38, you're talking about 9.5 hours, right? If you want to have writers conferences with kids, just to sit down and spend 5 minutes and talk to them about their writing, which studies show and all of the pedagogy points to is the best way to work with kids one-on-one. Give them a little time. You're talking about to do that, it'll take me upwards of a week if I do nothing else, including take roll.
There is a higher graduation rate, but still, Joseph, not all kids are going on to a 4-year college. If class sizes were smaller and there was more one-on-one attention, do you think those numbers would improve?
I think the numbers would soar. I think there's no question about it. I mean, our kids deserve more than we're giving them. We could do better than this.
So as you can see, based on what I just shared with you, there's reasons why teachers are on strike. Now, I do need to remind you of the article that came out in Time Magazine just last year, back in September. If you all aren't familiar, let me remind you. The first teacher here says, "My child and I share a bed in a small apartment. I spend $1,000 on supplies, and I've been laid off 3 times due to budget cuts. I am a teacher in America." This second teacher here, she says, "I have a master's degree, 16 years of experience, work 2 extra jobs, and donate blood plasma to pay the bills. I am a teacher in America." And then this last teacher here, she says, I have 20 years of experience, but I can't afford to fix my car, see a doctor for headaches, or save for my child's future. I am a teacher in America. And guys, it's not the point of them wanting more money personally, but the whole educational system overall. I told you already that many of these schools are dilapidated, they're overcrowded, and they're using outdated textbooks. And let me tell you, they spend more money on a prisoner than they do on the education of our children. Look at these books in this one classroom. Look at them. My daughter's chemistry book looked deplorable. That book has been used for about 10 years now. I kid you not. 10 years. And if I have a picture, I'm going to put it up here so you all can see. Of course, I've had to blurt out the kids' names on the book, but it's been used multiple times for a long time. So, again, this is America. And we're dealing with some kids not having desks to write on. Okay? This is America. So, being that I'm a numbers person, I wanted to find out how much does it cost to incarcerate an inmate in California. Let's zoom in on these numbers. $35,425 for security, health care $26,665, medical care. Well, this is the breakdown of that right here. Okay, so you've got $16,100, psychiatric services, dental care, pharmaceuticals, um, the food to feed them, clothing, religious activities. Just take a look at this expenditure here. And if you scroll down a little further, right here, it costs $81,203. It costs on average $81,000 per year to incarcerate an inmate in prison in California. Over three-quarters of these costs are for security and inmate health care. So if you think about the cost for an inmate, let's look at how much it costs to educate a student in California. According to this article, and this was in 2017, it all depends. It all depends. So here's what they've said. Right here. In Ed Week's 2017 Quality Counts, California ranked 46 out of the 50 states and Washington, D.C., spending $8,694 per student. That's $3,462 less than the national average of $12,156 per student. Now, if we look at these numbers, it costs more to incarcerate an inmate than it does to educate a child. And we wonder why we have all these problems. Look at how much you're spending on a child versus an inmate. Until we get that together, nothing else is going to matter. And just keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, what Tupac says: the hate you give little infants F's everybody. Thug life. So until you do right by these children, these things are going to continue to happen. It's backwards. We spend more on incarcerating an inmate than we do on our kids, educating our children. And this is a travesty. It is ridiculous. I also want to know, well, shoot, how much does it cost to build a new school? Because a lot of these schools are outdated. And so, according to this particular article, again, this was 2015, school districts in the United States spend more than $14 billion on construction projects completed during the 2014 calendar year. Almost $7.8 billion of that was spent on new schools, accounting for 55% of the construction dollars. In 2014, the median elementary school in the United States cost $211.55 per square foot to build. The median cost for a middle school is $242.96 per square foot. The average size for an elementary school is like 188 square foot for each student. And they're saying that when they design an elementary school, it's to accommodate 624 students. So you're talking about 84,700 square foot, totaling $16 billion for, I'm sorry, $16 million for a school. For a middle school of about 1,000 students, you're looking at 180 square feet per student, roughly 49,000 for each student. So the average high school cost is 45 million. So as you can see, it is a lot to build a school, but guess what? It pays to educate your children so we do not have to worry about them later. A lot of our kids are behind, but I'm going to save that for another day, for another podcast. I do want to say that everything that happens in education doesn't happen by happenstance. It's happening for a reason. You follow the paper trail and you will see what's going on behind that closed window. We got to do right by our children because karma is a bee. If you don't take care of the kids, they will not take care of you. If you want to get in touch with me about anything you've heard on this special podcast on the LA strikes or anything from a previous podcast that you've heard, please reach out to me. I'm on Instagram at TK the Chemist, Twitter and Periscope, TK the Chemist 01, and Facebook, My Gym Science Center. I look forward to connecting with you guys. And remember, go out and volunteer in some of these schools so you can understand why the teachers are having the time that they're having. Maybe if you go in and volunteer and just, ask a teacher if I can cut some papers out, make some copies, whatever they may need to get done, you would understand. You can pass that information along to your community. Remember, we have to work together. Teachers can't do it by themselves. There are a lot of children who need extra help, extra attention, and the teachers don't have enough time in the day to do it all. Until next time, remember, educate your mind, body, and soul with words and thoughts that will empower you. The library is free. You don't have to have money to go to the library. Do you all know that you can read and get information every day? Learn something new every single day. And be allergic to being average. Be allergic to negativity. Until next time, don't let anyone lower your vibe. Elevate your mind, body, and soul. Peace.